You got Daryl as a service for Office 365 Message Center. The week that was, episode 33. We're talking about list templates that get modern support. There's a few different ways to interact with Microsoft Teams, with apps and commands and stuff like that. More modern web parts for the modern pages, and a couple of other things that we have noticed. This was Office 365 Message Center the week that was. Right. Damn,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, that was fun. Hello, everyone. How are you doing, Daryl?
I'm good. This is a different day. Okay, I know you don't like it when I let it out of the bag, but we're
Oh my
planning
goodness! Right out of the gate, you're telling everybody.
Look, it's about honesty, okay? I'm flying in the air right now. Dan's chatting to you. I might be chatting to you at the beginning of this broadcast from a departure lounge.
My goodness. Everybody's tuned out now. They're like, oh, this is not live?
Oh, man.
Don't tune out. We got some good stuff.
We do.
Got a great interview coming up. Don't tune out.
Yep. No, that's right. So we're talking to Liz Sundet about choices. So I got here for about 10 minutes, a bit further on the show. We're going to crack into looking at our announcements, and there are 4 this week.
Yes.
We'll just shuffle that over to the right page, of course, to the admin center.
Yep.
And we'll look at the correct announcement to begin with. Yeah, so SharePoint Online lists templates that are getting more modern support. There's been a few that have been gaining this, and they're drip feeding it over time. What's on the list here that have gained the modern support, Dan?
Well, this one is showing wiki page, the promoted links, which, by the way, a lot of people use. In fact, I know some people who have talk about this as a whole session about promoted links and how you can get interactive content for people, for your users. But and then the asset library. So this is, I think, a great step. I'm a SharePoint guy, and I like we like the bringing what we've had to the modern experience and getting that modern support. So this is good.
Yeah, the key things with modern support are the way that you manage your lists, the way that you can bulk update various things. I had a quick play with promoted links as a modern list. Yes, it's a better experience, I guess, in the pretty sense, but I did find some things didn't quite work the way that I expected. Now, I expect to be able to take a promoted links list and drop it on a page. And that's, we add it as a web part or as an app like we did in the SharePoint 2013. I struggled to do that with the modern page. I couldn't find how to add that list. There is a new web part there that's the list preview that you can add to a modern page, but it didn't have my promoted links list and the available lists to put on the page. So, yeah.
Well, this is to be gradually rolling out the beginning of February.
Yep.
The rollout will be completed by the end of February. So maybe that full experience hasn't gotten there, but
I think it's that, and I think it's that the
missing that web part.
Well, yeah, the list web part is still in preview too.
That's right.
Yeah.
All
good. But yeah, we're plugging away there and modernizing stuff. We'll
come back to that. We'll come back.
Yeah, we will.
Modernizing stuff here in just a moment. Yeah.
New ways to interact with Teams. So this one snuck out a bit. I jumped on it with a little news flash as I came across a blog post and the functionality.
Yep.
My first experience of this, I was working on something, went to go change to a different tenant because I'm going between different guest tenants.
You're like, where's my face?
Where's that button gone? Where's my face gone? What's this big search bar up there? What was your experience when it suddenly appeared?
I'll say when I saw you making comments, I think maybe on Twitter at first. I wasn't in Teams. In fact, I think I was coming back from a meeting or something. And I was like, what is he on about? So I fired up Teams and I was like, yeah, my face is missing. which is what I thought was funny. You're like, "Where's my face?" There, and people who've been using Teams know that in the bottom left-hand corner, you would click on your face, and if you had other tenants that you were connected to in Teams, that's how you would get there. You could switch down there. You could switch, get to your preferences, etc. Well, that's gone, and now you're up in the top right. So my first take on it was. I think I did see a little bit of improvement on switching tenants. So I am a member of a couple of tenants. That's always been a painful experience and slow, and as well as the unread messages are always, not always, but sometimes they're off. It'll say 2 unread messages, and you'll go into the tenant where those 2 messages were supposed to be, and there aren't any messages. So it was good. Initially I thought this is good, and I saw the command bar, and I was like, this is great. Now, what am I supposed to do with this?
That's where it got bigger for me, because I was like, oh, is it just that it's moving stuff? This is cosmetic. Hey, what the heck is the search bar? What do you mean / something? What do you mean add something? Mm-hmm. And it really didn't occur to me too that there was some more to it, which is I guess the third thing, having your own individual view of apps. And I picked that up from reading Tracy Vanderskeef's post. She did a couple of posts on some of the capabilities of these new ways to interact with Teams. So do check that out on Regarding365.
.com.
Yeah, .com. Thank you. And she pointed out that you can have a personal view for looking at all the notebooks you interact with, a planner personal view. You can go in and look at the stream videos that you might have dropped into your playlist. So yeah, lots of different ways to interact with that.
Yeah.
There's something though I think about this, in that we are doing a lot with Teams, and we're trying to bring in a collaboration for regular people, regular users, not IT pros. And now we've got all these other super duper features that are popping up. Is that going to overwhelm people? We'll see how that goes.
And we will. And I think if a regular user sees that bar, they'll use it for search. They may see and read or see that it says you can use @ or slashes and start doing those other things. But I just see it being used as search initially, until they can get more into it and get comfortable with it. But
there's as you're searching and using the @ symbol with there, you have a small list of applications that you can install and make it as part of the chat experience. Now these are different to bots in the sense that you can converse with them and get information, and they'll come back and you train them. But the apps that you're bringing in are more about rich content. So you can query an app, you can say, show me a YouTube video, and it'll do the search from that query, and then you can bring in a rich card. And so I think we'll be seeing more of those as we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a deep topic, and we just point you towards Tracy's
well, and
code.
one thing, I think this update for Teams has other updates we've seen, both good we're seeing here, but also bad. That you and I have experienced. Yeah. Or I guess not bad, but negative to us, the way we use Teams, especially for our show. So I think that's, we get the good with the bad, right? Or the bad with the good, whatever. In these updates that are coming out. So I like these things. I like these updates for Teams, and Teams is great, and it's growing into, and it's morphing into this thing that Microsoft has been talking about even before Ignite, was Teams being the central location for your work, and that becoming, that be the goal, that they want you to be in Teams, and then everything else can plug in, and you could do all your work, but Teams is your central place.
Yeah, you don't have to leave, and I think that's where your connectors, your bots, and now you're calling out an app and getting information through in there. It's all about trying to do things from within chat still, expanding on that. Yeah, so there was a couple of other things we'll mention later that weren't in this announcement, but were also later on mentioned in a blog post. Yeah. And, we got the traditional, our goal is to ensure that we will notify you in advance, but oops, sorry about that.
Will you forgive us,
Yeah.
please?
Actually, I want to go back just briefly to that previous
Okay.
notification message. There is a template that they fill out to use to say, hey, product group, fill this out to give us a message. Check out this bottom one.
Yeah, I know. I
Do you
saw
want
that.
to add another URL, or hey, how about this one which we haven't hyperlinked?
Yeah, and they didn't remove the header, and
Yeah.
they then didn't put in the. Yeah, it's all right. Maybe it was a bad day. I don't
It
know.
was I don't know.
It was a
Anyone
Monday.
listening there, feel free to update it. We are your eagle eyes for you.
Yes.
Additional web parts for SharePoint Online modern pages.
Here we are. I told you we're going to come to it.
Yep.
So, more modern experience in SharePoint and bringing in Planner, 365 connectors, Twitter, Kindle Instant Preview,
Wow.
and then the auto alt text. Yeah.
Kindle what?
Yeah, Kindle Instant Preview. Honestly, I haven't. I kind of skimmed over that, and you brought it up to me as, wait a minute, is this what does this mean, Kindle Instant Preview? I haven't looked into it, but I think it's Instant Preview for Kindle, the file types. Those of the files that you can. I don't know. We can, but we'll dive into it.
Yeah, there's 200 or 300 of them or whatever that you can view different kinds of files. So maybe Kindle's part of that now.
Yeah.
Being able to share a Kindle book with your team. I don't know if you can do that.
You can. The Amazon actually has an embed tool on for a Kindle book page.
Okay.
So maybe that's what it is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's 2 of them in there which do depend on it being the web page that you're trying to add these web parts has to be directly connected to the Office 365 group. So that's your planner one and your connectors. You can't just go to any old team site and add a Office 365 connector for any old group. It's got to be the team site that's related to your Office 365 group.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise with planner.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. What have we got? Lastly, OneDrive for Business guided tour.
Yeah, and we talked about this already, right?
Oh, right.
This is if it's the first time you're using OneDrive for Business, when you get going with the app, it's going to walk you through what is OneDrive for Business and how you can use it. And I like it for user adoption and getting people on board. It's not just, okay, you have a new app and use it. It can give you a little bit of idea, so you can use Microsoft's content to help with user adoption.
I mean to just set up a new account on my tenant and just try this out, just see what is presented, rather than just depending on the screenshots. Because, the message for me is that while it's called OneDrive for Business or OneDrive, the name is actually so much more. Microsoft are trying to make OneDrive as your Windows Explorer for the cloud. And so we're seeing that more and more with the sync on demand, file sync on demand, and being able to go different places. Even on a mobile, that if you're going to browse from Teams to a file, or from the SharePoint app to a file, it defaults over as OneDrive as your app for the files experience.
Right.
Navigating files.
Yep.
So, I want to see if they've covered that well in the introduction. As a way of inducting people into how to use it. I see there's a few activities. They say, hey, you've managed to sign in, great. Now share your first file. Now do this, now do that. The other key thing for this is that finally being able to copy documents from OneDrive into a team site, into a different site collection, that was my main bugbear for pushing people towards using OneDrive all the time. Bugbear, whatever. It's a term, right? I don't know. My speed bump, my annoyance, because pain point, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Encouraging people to drop documents in all the time. First off, is OneDrive for your collaboration experience with files. You and I know we're always trying to encourage people. Who's your audience? Where do you really want to start this from? Now it doesn't matter so much because you can start that document on OneDrive, copy it to the larger audience once you've got it to a point that you're happy with it. Anyways, hey, we should check in with this quick interview that we had with Liz. Now, Liz Sundit, she She's in the SharePoint space as well, and user adoption. She's got a few cool opinions, and we got talking about change and choices, which has been a reasonable common topic now for me on blog posts. So we'll check in. Here we go. Hey, this is Daryl to the service, and we're talking with Liz Sundett. And Liz, you've been I couldn't even say a long-time listener, long-time fan, because it's only 32 episodes. But yeah, good to talk with you.
Yeah, great talking with you today, Daryl.
Yeah, so
thanks for having me.
A pleasure. No, we have some things in common. We're interested in the end user perspective of things. We're not such deep on the IT pro sense and twiddling dials, but we're very interested in change and how people have to make choices. And you and I were talking a little before the show about making choices. We've got a lot of them in Office 365, haven't we?
Yes, we do, definitely, and more coming.
Yeah.
Every day.
So what's one of the common conversations you hear around Office 365 and making choices?
Well, one of the things that, in my experience, that has been a common conversation has been that, hey, we've got, almost too many choices. We don't know what to use or when or how to use it, and our IT department isn't necessarily helping with that conversation. And so, hey, I saw, this new tool or this new technology at a conference, or we've just hired someone in our department that has used, this type of tool in their past experiences. So we've got an expert, so we're going to use that going forward. And whatever it might be, they're not necessarily having those conversations with IT departments. They're going off on their own and buying software and, basically installing it with their own budget and using those internal resources or learning from consultants on this new technology. And IT, 6 months down the road, has a support ticket put in for this particular technology and going, hey, we don't know anything about this. How do we use this? What is this? Who authorized this? And it becomes a constant source of not only change within the business, but has become a bigger problem, in that being shadow IT. And how do we support and also manage some of those applications within the business that we don't know anything about? And I read an article, and I can't remember exactly, I think it was CIO Magazine, but there was a Gartner study that was published that talked about shadow IT and the growing problem that most CIOs don't even know, 35 to 40% of their applications. And, they didn't feel like it was, okay, yeah, maybe it's there, but, there's not a whole lot. And in reality, there's, some 900 different applications that are being used, and they're thinking, oh, it's, 30 to 40 different applications that were shadow IT, and oh, guess what? Now we've got an even bigger problem because we weren't even aware of how many, or the vastness of the shadow IT that we are dealing with. And so we get a lot of questions around Office 365, and there's too many choices, but yet we've got, a larger problem in the sense that people are making their own choices now.
Go Skype. Come on.
Have those conversations, and then, basically matching what the business need is to the software that we maybe already have in our own stack that is close or close enough to meet those requirements of the business. So.
Yeah, and so that trend, or I guess the challenge, when we're putting out this kind of fear when we start talking about what to choose and when, and we have too many choices, and yet the reality is people are going out and making those choices anyway. The boundary that we think of as the Microsoft ecosystem is there, and we try and offer what's available in the set that we're paying for and in the tools that are available to us. But if you take that imaginary dotted line and you stop panicking about all this choice, if people are going outside, they're still making choices from a plethora of options. So we should really be making. I know it's hard to say. This is the real quandary for the IT pro and the end user. End user sees stuff appearing, so they begin to get used to change and change happening and choices. Then you've got the IT pro that struggles with keeping up and catching up. And yet they are experiencing this stuff because they're end users too. So it's really bridging that gap, getting a bit braver in terms of setting up processes to reach out in even an informal way and saying, this is what we've seen this month. Here's the change and the choice that you might have. We've got some guidelines around that. Go for it, community. Talk about it. We've put some safety nets up and made some choices around security, but trusting the end user with the reins and the power users to teach each other and teach themselves, and deal with these choices, because we have those choices regardless of where we draw the barrier.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And it all comes down to having those conversations, being available to have those conversations, being open to those conversations, and then just going through a change management process to make sure that people are aware of what is available, what's coming, the reasons why we're considering Microsoft Stack, because the people in the business have a line of communications back to Microsoft to be able to make those changes or know what's coming down the pipeline, rather than some other tool or technology that we don't know when it's going to be updated, or if these features are going to be available, or how to configure some of those features and how to use them. And then really training the users on how to use those technologies. And maybe it's not that we turn on everything, maybe it's we turn on those specific features that will give the users the greatest advantage and the greatest return on their investment for what their business needs are.
Yeah, I think one of the main objections or struggles that we've seen and heard talked about is when features and things do appear, and we get like general availability, general updates, but there are some things that drop in that do significantly change the end user experience, give them more choices, and you've got poor old IT pros struggling and saying, well, we didn't know it was coming. We're getting calls now that say this is what's here. Case in point, the change in how OneNote operates within Microsoft Teams now, and there's some advantages in what they've added, but it's also changed the way that people need to create notebooks. How did the IT pro deal with that and the choices that are now available? How did the end user deal with that? So you'll have some power users that will be able to find their way through, but predominantly, how do we communicate that change and those choices? And I think that this is probably the area that is evolving for the IT pro, is now that we are less involved in setting this up, working with the infrastructure, we still have this brilliant knowledge and way of being able to figure stuff out. We've just got to work a little on our soft skills about how to communicate that to our end users so that they're aware of change and not panicking about change. And as leaders with your skills, you shouldn't panic about change either, to try and communicate these choices so that they're not overwhelming or scary.
Yeah, and it takes time to do the testing, do the piloting of those types of things before you kind of roll it out to the larger part of the organization. But it all comes down to fitting what is the business need. If you don't have a business need for a particular feature, even though it's available, then, hey, at least have a scenario within your business that promotes its use. And that, I think, is kind of the first step to making sure that those changes are communicated properly, that you have the right kind of conversation around those types of things that are happening. And if you don't have a need for it, then, I would say don't use it until you have a need for it.
Yeah. Well, Liz, it's been good talking to you about choices, and this almost feels like it could be a co-presenter kind of session. Maybe we should do together at Ignite or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Let's submit that, because choices and change, two very important things that the end user and the IT pro have to deal with. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing some of your opinions. We'll check in again occasionally just to see reactions and thoughts around change that you see in Office 365.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Oh, thanks so much, Liz, for sharing some of your thoughts there around change, around choices, and kind of backing me up on some of the blog posts that we did recently.
Nice.
It's a series, and it's a serious series about trying to help IT pros to consider making a slight transition to thinking more about sharing the knowledge that they have with the end users. So we'll leave it at that. Now, there were a couple of other things that were not mentioned in the Message Center, or messaged in the Mention Center.
Right. Yes, that one.
Yeah. So it was around Microsoft Teams again, and there was a blog post that eventually came out, and that was being able to join meetings from the browser as a guest. Yeah. Anonymous join.
Yeah, and I said it on Twitter to Ann Michaels. I think this is, the beginning of what I've really seen as the biggest problem for Teams, and being the replacement for the desktop communication device that Skype for Business has become. If we can have meetings and pull outside people in, then we can bridge that gap, which is, instead of inviting people into your tenant and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Having people join your meetings is huge, because then I can host my meeting with my clients or my business associates, people I'm doing business with, to get them looped in. So this is the beginning of it. And I say beginning because there's problems or gotchas or, stumbling block. What'd you call it? What was your bugbear? So there are. But this is the nice first step. So and it is steps, because at the moment your richer experience for joining a meeting from the browser is via the Edge browser. What nice browser?
To see that. Yeah, the Edge browser. So it's nice to see after fair whack of time that different mobile platforms are getting support first before Windows Phone. Now we've seen some support for Edge first before.
Is that some browser made by who makes that browser?
That's a rather edgy kind of comment you've got there. So what? Yeah, I'm sorry. Dad joke. It is a dad joke. We're both dads, and that's why we can laugh. We're funny in our own heads. With the support, it means you can, as an anonymous attendee, you can see someone share desktop, you can see the video, audio both ways as well. I think you can share video up, and so you're almost there with a full experience. For Chrome, it's a few things are missing from there, like you can receive a desktop, but there's you can't send your your video. It's more about receiving it. Now, the other thing, like if we're talking about like a final step or two to using Skype less and connecting with people outside of my organization, what we can do with Skype is I can plug in someone's federated address, or if they're open federated, and I can just have a chat with them. Yep. Maybe I've got it set up wrong. Maybe I just haven't looked at it close enough. But that's something that I want in Teams as well. I'm just going to plug in Daniel's address or whoever else is in my contact list.
Yeah.
And
have a private chat. Yeah. Most certainly. Yep. I think that's that again. This is a beginning step. That's another step that would have to happen before I'd get rid of Skype for business.
So meetings are the open experience for anonymous or non-federated.
Right.
It's really the chat kind of, how do we break that experience out so it's not restricted to just the tenant that you're signed into, that it can be just
Right.
anything to anywhere.
And it really needs to be not browser either specific, right? Again, first step, but we need to be able to have, if I have a Teams client and you have a Teams client, we're not, in the same tenant, and you initiate an instant message, we talk, we can do it inside Teams. And then when we have you're like, hey, let's do this meeting now, or meet with the group, or it's a scheduled meeting, whatever. Let me use my Teams to do that.
And I'm sure it's on the roadmap. I just don't know the ID or the URL to point to it. So yeah, there was that.
That's good feedback, Daryl. Add that to user voice.
That's right. Yeah, let's add a user voice entry for do your homework before shows. That would be a good suggestion. The other thing that we had talked about, I don't find it too exciting, but it is important to recognize the change in
this must be Windows and Office support. Is that what this is?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's really falling into line now with what we've all been seeing, the whole subscription model, and making sure that your Windows version is current and up to date, and Office is up to date too. So the feature set can surely be supported.
Yeah.
But what was you go ahead. What was the real catch around it?
I think the catch was they were adding, I guess, 6 months to Windows support, but then Office, technically it was removing maybe some support time. But I think you're right. It's not a surprise, and I wasn't taken back from this. The way they've changed the updates to Windows to where you're on this different release cycle. I think it was good to be clear about, if you're on this level, you have this support. It's not a Windows 10 period. It's a Windows 10 version 1709 or whatever. Right. So I thought it was, that's good to clarify that.
Yeah.
I wasn't, it didn't, get me in a big frenzy or anything, but, So.
No, but so it's leading to that. I know those who may be in a frenzy, of course, are those who are enterprise licensing, and they're not using Office Pro Plus via a 365 subscription, or updating Windows via that way too. They might be on another licensing plan, so they'll have questions again. Well, what about us? Are we being funneled through to just this way to do it? But it's important to call it out, because it does involve Microsoft 365, which is really what they want you to move to, so that you've got Windows and Office covered, and device security and the like as well. Yeah. Well, that rounds us out to the top of the show. 32 minutes over. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Liz, for the interview. If you are keen to talk to us about other topics and things that you've noticed, you've got an opinion about what's happening in Microsoft 365, reach out. You know where to find us, because here we are on YouTube, our channel, Regarding 365. We're also on Facebook. We are regarding365.com. And do like, subscribe, comment, and all those other cool things that you should do to show support. Particularly, it's over my left shoulder. That one there, yeah, okay. Is a little icon that if you click on it, you'll see the next episode for next week. Click on that. Also click on the little bell to get the notification, and you'll be all queued up, ready to jump on that next episode. Thanks for watching. Catch you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.